Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, welcome back to my video. If you see me here right now we are in the sixth meeting, yeah. And I will continue for our material today in word Anglicis. We move from South Asian Anglicisms to East Asian Anglicisms, yeah. But as usual, before we go to the material today, I will read for you the vision of our Latansa Masiro University menjadi universitas yang unggul, berdaya saing global, berjiwa entrepreneurship, berlandaskan akhlakul karimah. And for the vision for our Faculty of Teacher Training and Education is menjadi Fakultas Keguruan dan Ilmu Pendidikan yang unggul pada penyiapan bahan ajar berbasis digital dan edupreneur yang dapat berdaya saing global dijiwai akhlakul karimah. And also our English Education Department, the vision is menjadi program studi pendidikan bahasa Inggris yang unggul pada penyiapan bahan ajar berbasis digital dengan pendekatan kearifan lokal, serta edupreneur yang memiliki daya saing global dijiwai akhlakul karimah. That's all everyone. Now I will continue to I will read the meaning of the Quran Surah Az-Zumar, verse 9. Say are those who know equal to those who don't know. Indeed, only those endowed with understanding will take heed. This Quran Surah Az-Zumar verse 9, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala emphasize the significant difference between those who possess knowledge and those who do not. People of knowledge have the ability to gain deeper understanding of life, religion, and the world, and to derive wisdom from every event. Through knowledge, one becomes wiser and more capable of guiding oneself and others toward the path of truth. So, everyone, if you are one of a person who always taking time to learn something, that's a good news for you because Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala said that for all Muslim to have a knowledge, yeah. If we have a knowledge and we can become more wiser, yeah, and also capable of guiding ourselves and others to be a better person, yeah, and also in a good deeds, inshallah. Now let's continue for our material of East Asian Anglicism, everyone. Okay, we move from South Asian to East Asian Anglicism. What we are gonna discuss here, it's the first is introduction, what it means by East Asian Anglicism, and then we will move to the Chinese English, characteristic of Chinese English, Japanese English, characteristic of Japanese English, Korean English, characteristic of Korean English, Anglicization of Korea, conclusion, and also suggested activity. That's all that we will discuss in this video, yeah. First, we go to the introduction. You know that last time when I talk about the spreading of English around the world, yeah, because English is already used so many years ago, yeah. So English become uh language that all of society in the world, all of the countries in the world use as a communication, everyone. That's why uh all the scholars that really want to learn and study in this area of word Anglicis, they found that the spreading of English language across the globe has led to the emergence of various form and function of English in different region. One of them is in East Asian Englishes, of course, yeah. So this time, of course, we will also discuss about the diversity of English variety, yeah, around in East Asian Englishes countries, yeah. Okay, as Asian countries, yeah, English plays a crucial role in countries within expanding circle, everyone. The last one I talk about inner, outer, and expanding circle. Nah, East Asian English is also in expanding circle, where it is neither an official language of government nor a primary medium of education, yet it holds a significant place in social and educational system. Yeah. And then these countries such as that surrounding the East Asian Anglicis, such as China, Taiwan, Japan, Korea, showcase how English has adapted to meet local cultural, social, and economic demands. That's its impact both in language and also in society, everyone. Nah, in East Asia, the development of English has been shaped by historical interaction. Not only interaction, historical interaction, it's also colonialism, trade, and globalization. So, in China, English was introduced during the 17th century through trade, particularly in cities like Macau and Canton. You know that in China, every trading, every goods, if you see your toys, your uh bag, your shoes, your everything you have at home, you wear, you use, always made in China, because China is a big trading in the world, yeah. One of the country that big trading in the world. That's why uh everything made in China, yeah. And the Macau and Canton is the two famous cities in China that as the trading place. And then the spreading of English accelerated with the Treaty of Tianjin in 1862, which opened more regions to Western influence. This growth continued in the modern era, yeah, with English become increasingly important in educational and professional context. So the first time in China, especially, English is spreading for language communication during the trading. And then in the modern era, in China and surrounding the East Asia, it's English is become important in education. Yeah, and also in professional context. Okay, also China is one of the World Trade Organization, yeah, and as the nation prepare for global event, yeah, like 2008 Beijing Olympics, yeah, it's also for sport, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then we will take a look on Chinese English. What happened when English come in China, yeah? Because most of Chinese speak Mandarin, yeah, we know it. But how they speak English, we will discuss it right now, yeah. The history and development of English in China, the early history is English come to the China in 1637. It come from British ya, British merchants ya in Macau and Canton when they want to do a trading ya. And then when they trade like as a tea, silk, and porcelain, yeah, you know that in China is really famous for the porcelain, yeah. China's English pidgin emerged, yeah. The first one that appear in China is English pidgin, of course. Last time when I talk about pigeons in Africa, it's still the same, yeah. Uh, the meaning of pigeon is still the same, but the form pigeon China English will be a bit different, yeah. Okay. And then this English language spreading again, yeah. Following the global era, yeah. There is also Opium Wars, English spread to Shanghai, other treaty ports. Mission school introduced a more educated variety of English, especially during self-strengthening movement in the 1860s, yeah. And also there is a linguistic diversity with over uh 56 ethnic groups and 80 languages. English is not an internal language but is growing in use, yeah. Until 1972, English replaced Russian as the main foreign language, and in 1978, it became part of the National College entrance examination. Wow, that's amazing, yeah. English replacing, yeah, from Russia into English, yeah. So in China, since 1978, when you want to go to school in China, uh, especially in the college, yeah, college and university, you have to do English examination. It can be TOEFL or IELTS like that, yeah. And then I'm still in the history, yeah, history of how English come in China, yeah. Sorry, why I stop sharing. Sorry. Sorry for making a mistake. Yeah, and then look at this. Besides the education, in China also there is a political and ideological factors, yeah. In the early 20th centuries, English education was elitist, yeah, focusing on classic. The study of English was influenced by British norm and shaped by Soviet relation during the Cold War. Yeah, there is a Cold War in China at that time, yeah. And function of English post 1949, English shift from missionary use to application in medicine, engineering, and media. It also serves as a social status indicator in various fields. And then also there is a development in Taiwan, yeah. Taiwan is part of the China, yeah, still. English usage in Taiwan includes everyday interaction. English was introduced in elementary school in Taipei in 1993, ya. The various English, there is also a debate over the terms Chinese English and China English to describe the local variety. Or we can call it Chinglish, ya, refer to non-standard English usage. So, the evolution of English in China and Taiwan reflects significant social, political, and cultural changes. With not fully institutionalized, English role is increasingly diverse and widespread. Yeah. So, everyone, let's take a look on the characteristic of Chinese English, yeah, or we can call it Chinglish. Yeah. The first one, as similar to South Asian, when we talk about characteristic of uh, Chinese English or South Asian Englishes, it will influence some of the English structure, yeah, or English skill. It can be from pronunciation, vocabulary, and also the grammar. Let's see from the Chinglish, yeah. From the Chinglish, speaker often pronounce word in a way influenced by Mandarin, yeah, because all the first language or the mother tongue in China, in Chinese people is Mandarin, yeah. For example, they may struggle to distinguish vowel sound, so the word ting might sound like sing, yeah. Additionally, certain sounds that do not exist in Mandarin, such as the in this, are often replaced with other sound like s or s, like that, yeah. That's pronunciation. And about the vocabulary, in Chinglish, there are many words borrowed directly from Chinese, yeah. And some English words have a new meanings influenced by Chinese culture. For instance, the word intellectual not only refers to educated people but can also refers to a specific social class. The term big pot is used to describe the concept of equality in the workplace. That's the vocabulary. So it's rather bit similar, yeah. Some of the Chinese English borrow in English. And in for the grammar, the sentence structure in the Chinglish often differs from standard English. For example, Chinglish speakers frequently omit articles like the and might say he go to school instead of he goes to school. Like that, something omit, yeah. They also tend to use adverb to indicate time rather than changing verb form, yeah. It's because of Mandarin grammar, yeah. And then for the expression and culture, Chinglish often incorporates expression that come from Chinese culture. For example, greetings like "Have you eaten already?" are a traditional Chinese way to show care. Some expressions are directly translated from Chinese, demonstrating how English has been adapted to fit local culture. So, language can be also influenced by the culture, everyone. So, if you always ask something like, "Have you eaten already?" Something like that. It's in native English that's rarely use this kind of expression, yeah. Maybe they will just ask, "Are you hungry? Do you want to eat?" Like that, yeah. And then for language mixing, there is a frequent occurrence of code switching and code mixing, yeah, in Chinglish, especially among bilingual speakers. This blending of English and Chinese is common in informal setting and among younger generation, where certain terms may be more easily expressed in English. This characteristic highlight how English has been nativized in China, resulting in a distinct variety that reflects local linguistic and cultural realities. So in China, there is also mixing and switching the language, yeah. As I talked about before in South Asia, if you want to see in 2 days, it's still using switching and mixing, especially when you listen to the music ya. Some international singer come from China. It may have a or it may sing a song, and also inside their lyrics can be switched from English to Mandarin, or can be also mix English and Mandarin language. Yeah, you can search so many. Okay, and then from China we go to the Japan. Yeah, Japanese English. The development of English in Japan illustrates how a global language adapts to local contexts. According to Karchu and Nelson, 2006, English was introduced during the Bakumatsu period. Bakumatsu period is around 1853 to 1867, when Japan opened up to Western powers, with Commodore Matthew Perry's arrival marking its role in modernization and diplomacy. Yeah. The necessity of learning English intensified during the Meiji Restoration, yeah, as Japan aimed to catch up with Western advancement, viewing English as an essential for progress in science and education. So, in Japan is also want to open up, yeah, open up their country, that make their country become international, yeah. During this era, the Japanese government promoted English in schools and universities, making it the primary medium for accessing Western knowledge. Scholars like Mori Arinori even suggested it replace Japanese as the national language, though this didn't occur. Instead, English became crucial to translating Western texts to aid Japan's modernization. So this kind of history that English become uh, enter in Japan, yeah, because you know that uh, Japanese language is rather unique, yeah, and they have their own culture, yeah. Uh, in Korea, there is a Korean language, and in Japan there is a kanji, yeah. So this is a rather bit a different, a way different alphabet, yeah. And then for World War II, shift perceptions with English seen as the enemy's language. However, after Japan's defeat and the American occupation, English regained importance for communication with occupying forces and the global community, becoming vital for diplomacy and influenced by American culture in entertainment, business, and education. Yeah, this is after World War II. Yeah. In the post-war period, English solidified its role in education, becoming compulsory under the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sport, Science, and Technology. Yeah. Max MEXT. If you see in Japan, if you want to enter a school, college, university in Japan, now until now, Max is opening up and giving scholarship. Yeah, some of our Indonesian students already get a scholarship from Max. This one, yeah, to go to Japan. Despite this, English remains largely academic, focusing on regarding and writing. Sorry, focusing on reading and writing over spoken fluency. Additionally, English symbolizes modernity and sophistication in advertising, fashion, branding with katakana. English serving as a status marker rather than a practical communication tool. Yeah. There is also katakana ya, katakana and also kanji in Japan. That's a blend to English. The characteristic of Japanese English are shaped by how English has been absorbed into Japanese, undergoing various phonological, semantic, and cultural adaptation. Phono- Phonologically, English loanwords are modified to adhere to the Japanese consonant vowel syllable structure, which is simpler than English, more complex cluster. For example, as Karchu and Nelson 2006 note that words like stool become suturu, gray zone turns into gurizun, and 7-Eleven is transformed into sebunirebun. English words that end with consonant, which are in common in Japanese, are also adjusted. For instance, text become tekisuto and match turn into machi. That is, you can also see in the tabel here, yeah. There is a katakana. This is a alphabet in Japanese language, yeah. And the reading in Romaji, radio, it's meaning radio. This is some kinds of what is it? Loan word, yeah, English loan word from Japan, yeah. That's if you hear the pronunciations is rather the similar, yeah. Radio with radio. Terebi is television, yeah. Guru baru is a global. Pasokon, personal or computer. Supun, supun become spoon ya in English. And teiburu it means table ya. Majiku, majiku is a magic ya. And saka is soccer. Bareburu is volleyball. And aisukurimu is ice cream. Aisukurimu ya. Aisukurimu is ice cream. And we will hear another pronunciation differently when we go to the Chinese Chinglish or Korean English. Yeah, it will a bit different because uh, China, Japan, Korea has their own alphabetic language. Yeah, that's really far away, different from English alphabet. Okay. So, such changes are necessary to match Japanese phonological rules, and katakana is the script commonly used to represent these foreign loanwords. Yeah. And then we still in the characteristic of Japanese English. In addition to phonological adjustment, English loanwords in Japanese frequently undergo semantic shift, adapting in meaning to fit Japanese cultural norms. Yeah. Terms like nice are used as a naisu ni, which means nicely. Another example is mansion in Japanese, which refers to an apartment or condominium rather than a large house, as it does in English. So the meaning is the same, yeah, mansion. This process allows English loanwords to be seamlessly integrated into Japanese everyday language while reflecting the unique cultural understanding. The concept of wasei eigo, or we can call it Japanese English, further demonstrate the creative use of English in Japan. Words are often blended with Japanese elements to create new meanings that doesn't exist in the original English. For example, pasokon is a shortened form of personal computer. And also there is another word, konbini, come from convenience store, yeah. So they make their own uh word, yeah, to call something, yeah. To say something, they make a new word, yeah. It's rather similar when we talk earlier in South Asian, yeah. Another example is salaryman, which refer to a businessman or office worker, a work that reflect Japan's cultural focus on corporate life. This adaptation show how English is used not only for communication but also to convey specific ideas relevant to Japanese society. So, Japanese people, Japanese society also trying to fit with English, yeah, English into Japan, into Japanese culture, yeah. Okay, and then for the pronunciation challenges arise due to the differences between Japanese and English phonology. That's really, yeah, really hard, I think. As observed by Cardew and Nelson in 2006, the absence of distinct R and I sound in Japanese leads to difficulty distinguishing between words like rice and lice. Yeah. Oh, it's not I but L, yeah, L. Similarly, Tengse and Gakula 2021 point out that Japanese speakers often insert vowels into English words that end with consonant, transforming sing into singu and fast into fasuto. Yeah, these changes ensure that loanwords come from to the phonetic structure of Japanese, though they also create obstacle for learners trying to pronounce English words accurately. This is just like when you have your own language, your mother tongue is very far, far away from your new language that you are gonna learn. It means that your articulation, yeah, around your mouth, it's really hard to speak, yeah. So you will make something like a new pronunciation, yeah. Your mouth is trying to fit with the new language, but it's okay, I think, yeah. At a pragmatic level, Baxter argues that the use of English in Japan is distinct from how it is traditionally viewed as a foreign language. Instead of English in Japan is shaped by the country's current needs, the future aspiration. As noted by Baxter, English holds a specific status in Japan that is deeply rooted in both historical factors and present realities. It's not simply a foreign language, but a tool adapted for the nation's development goals. So, we can summarize here that um, English isn't easy for several countries to learn and to speak, yeah. Especially for the countries that their language or their alphabetics it's really different from English, yeah. And then at the level of semantic and pragmatic, the use of language in social context, Baxter point out that direct statement of fact are often avoided in Japanese English communication. To make statements seem less forceful or imposing, qualifiers like perhaps and I think are frequently used, softening assertion and aligning with Japanese cultural norms of communication, where expression one's own views directly is often seen as intrusive. Yeah. So it's rather used, yeah, perhaps, maybe, I think. Moreover, Baxter also emphasized that speaking English in a Japanesely manner goes beyond just the linguistic elements. It encompasses a way of using the language that allows Japanese speakers to retain their cultural identity and not feel alienated by the use of a foreign language. Uh, that's why of when speaking English over Japanese people, a way to communicate confidently in English while maintaining their sense of self, allowing them to say, I'm an English speaker in a way that feels authentic to their Japanese identity. This approach avoids conflict between their use of English and their identity as a Japanese speaker. Yeah, this is just like manner, yeah, manner for using English and meaningly. So they try to, once again, I say that they try to make fit between Japanese culture to English, yeah. And then after we talk a lot about Japanese English, now we move to Korean English. Okay, look at here. In Korean English, early influence of English language is in Joseon Dynasty. English education in Korea began in the late 19th century when American missionaries established school with English instruction. So in Korea, it's a bit different, yeah. When we take a look back again in China and also in Japan, is influenced English by British, yeah. But in Korea, it's influenced by the American English from American missionaries, yeah, that they establish, they make a school for education in Korea. Yeah. So, and then also still in Korea, in South Korea, post 1950s, after the Korean War, English became integral to South Korea's education system, driven by the alliance with the US and goals of modernization. English proficiency is essential for economic development and social mobility, with university entrance exam and job application often requiring this language. Yeah, private English institutes, Hagwons, are already widespread. Yeah, also in that time. And for the North Korea, in contrast, in North Korea, initially prioritize Russia, yeah, Russian, but introduced English in the 1970s for diplomatic and technical purposes. So if we see here in this historical background, there is a different gap between South Korea and North Korea. Yeah, in South Korea, English come from the U.S., but in North Korea, uh, Russia is come first, and then after that, English enter in North Korea also. Yeah, and the English is something like coming to education system. Yeah, in North Korea, and South Korea views English as a crucial for globalization and advancement, while North Korea sees it with suspicion, yeah, restricting it to elites in government and science due to its association with Western influences. So, we if we see here until now, yeah, South Korea is always open up, yeah, but North Korea is always making a block for something new, yeah. And then for the characteristic of Korean English, the first one is come from lexicosemantic differences. Korean English shows lexical differences such as treating growth as countable using after all for finally, and phrases like do with meaning survive. Informal Korean use also influences meanings like make it for attack, yeah. And for morphosyntactic differences, definite articles like the are overused before nouns in relative clauses and uncountable nouns are often treated as a countable. Tenses are not consistently differentiated. And the third is pragmatic differences. Phrases like why don't you are used more politely and what are you is used to ask someone's profession differing from standard English usage. Yeah. And for the Anglicization of Korea, English has a significantly influence in the Korea language in a various aspect, yeah, including phonetics, vocabulary, stylistic choice, particularly after the Korean War and an American presence in South Korea. This is increased interaction with the English-speaking world, yeah, and also make the Hangul. Hangul is the Korean language, yeah, that's more difficult to pronounce, yeah. But you know, since Korea is one of the country that really want their entertainment become international, so all of the world know the Hangul, yeah, also the Korean language. Okay. And then look at this, the influence of loanword from English on the phonology and grammar of Korean, yeah. Look at the influence of phonology first, yeah. Consonant sound adjustment. Korean likes certain English consonant, yeah, like F, V, and Z, leading to adaptation. For instance, coffee become kopi, yeah. It's similar like Indonesian language, yeah. Video become video, ya. Pizza become pizza, ya. Hmm. And so sorry I couldn't read the Hangul one, ya. I don't know how to pronounce in Korean language, ya. Vocal sound adjustment, English vowel that have no direct Korean equivalent are modified, ya. This is for the vocal sound. The A sound in back become A or E, yeah. And the diphthong like O in home simplify to single vowels, resulting in home. Yeah. There is not a home, but a home. Yeah. Open syllable system, Korean prefers open syllable, leading to modification of borrowed words. For example, bus become beuseu to fit the open syllable structure. So this is rather similar to the Chinglish and also Japanese, yeah. That's they make modification in English when they speak, yeah. When Koreans speak English, they will make a modification to fit their articulation, yeah. Okay. And then for the grammar, look at this. In Korea, use borrow verb. English loan verb are commonly adapted by adding Korean verb ending, such as hada. Example include uh, download hada for download. It's rather hard, yeah, hard to pronounce, yeah. Download become download hada. Download hada. And for the check become Ceko Hada. They put Hada in the last line, yeah. And for the grammar mix, while English words are used informally, they adhere to Korean sentence structure. For instance, ice cream. It's similar ya. It's similar to the Japanese ya. Ice cream meogoseo ya. Means I eat ice cream. So they mix ya. They mix between English and also Korean language, but still the mixing it's making something different ya. Not ice cream but ice cream. El meogoseo ya. And also, there is also the example, another example, ice cream, yeah, following the Korean subject, object, verb order. Yeah, they make a mix and also makes a different order. Yeah, it's all influenced by the Korean language. And also code switching, yeah, code switching. Younger Korean frequently mix English and Korean in conversation, leading to grammatical blending. Yeah, for example, busy na anul neomu busy hai means I am very busy today. It's switching that really Korean, yeah, mostly Korean language. Incorporating busy into a Korean sentence, yeah. So they put a busy just word busy in a long sentence of Korean language ya. Maybe like when we say saya mau eating dulu. It's like that ya. We put eating just a word in a long sentence in bahasa Indonesia ya. Okay, next, for cultural factors driving the adoption of loan words in Korea, is the first globalization and Western influence. Of course, rapid globalization since the late 20th century has introduced new English terms in technology, business, and culture, filling gap where Korean equivalent are lacking. So, Korean, especially in South Korea, they are really open up yeah for this globalization yeah and Western influence. And also the second one is influence of media and entertainment. Yeah, you know that now Korean is become one of the country that very famous yeah for the entertainment, especially for the K-pop, K-drama, and everything about entertainment. Yeah, all of younger and teenagers like Korean, yeah. Not only in Indonesia, in America, in uh, UK, in mostly around the world, love and know Korea drama, uh, K-pop, and many more. And also, right now, like as a K-pop, Blackpink, um still each the singer of Blackpink is already international singer. Now they make mix not only a soloing but also mix and collaborate with Western singers. Yeah, yeah, like this. Yeah, use English. Yeah, influence media. The Korean entertainment industry often use English. Yeah, English as a marker of modernity. Yeah. BTS, Dynamite, and also Blackpink, yeah, use features English phrase prominently, yeah. Or K-dramas, when we want to watch a drama Korea, we can also see that the actor and the actress somewhere they use English or they translate the language into English. So we as non-Korean can still watch the movie. Yeah. This is how they try to media and entertainment Korea become famous in international in a global context. Yeah. So and also the advertising, yeah, English phrase in Korea, beauty product ads like perfect cover, ultimate beauty, enhance a modern image and appeal to a global audience. They also like to use such kind of phrases, English phrases, yeah, to advertise their Korean product, yeah. Okay. And then for the technology and internet, it's also technology industry uh become more broader, yeah, and borrow English terms with many IT related words being directly adopted into Korea. So when we open up some of the technology, it can be a software or a hardware, it written in English, yeah. And for the prestige and social status in Korea, using English word is often associated with higher social status in South Korea, especially among the youth, reflecting global knowledge and education. Yeah, this is something like a social status. Yeah, when you as a teenager or as a youth in Korea can speak English fluently. Yeah, you look like wow, you are clever. You have a good status there, yeah. So the influence of English on Korea phonology and grammar reflects broader cultural changes driven by globalization, media, and a quest for modernity, leading to a complex interplay between languages in contemporary Korea. And everyone as Anglicization, the phonology of English loanwords in Korea by Nicholas Tremter, yeah. Okay, this is just additional information, yeah, about the Anglicization, yeah, Anglicization loanword in Korea, yeah. But we already talk about it more, yeah. Like paragogic vowel insertion, adding vowels such as I, U are often added at the end of the words to conform to Korean phonological rules, yeah. Uh, epenthetic vowel insertion. A vowel is adding between group of consonant, yeah, that do not exist in Korea, yeah. Print become purintu because they don't have a print empty. There is no, yeah. So they added epenthetic vowels insertion, yeah, become a purintu to make fit to their articulation of a Korean language. And also for the consonant simplification, some English consonants such as a P and F are often climmatized into one consonant, yeah. And also for the vocal adaptation, unstressed vowel in English are often represented by Korean vowels, yeah, such as sehwa becoming O because there is no sehwa in Korean language. And also there is also final reduction, yeah. Final consonants such as a P, T, and K are often encrypted or deleted, yeah. Or we can also call it omission, yeah. This influence of English has made the rules for loanword adaptation increasingly in uniforms, especially with Korean speakers increasing knowledge of English phonology. Despite its significant influence on the absorption of new words, changes the core phonology of Korean remain limited. So once again, all of the changes, it can be for the vowel, consonant, or they omit something. It's rather than Korean people trying to fit English into their Korean language articulation, yeah. And we go to the conclusion, everyone. Finally, the conclusion of we learn is Asian Anglicis is, you know, in East Asian Anglicis, there are, I already give you three kinds of sample of countries, yeah. They are in there, yeah, located there, like China, Japan, and Korea. You know that these three kinds of countries has a very different language with English, yeah. In China, they use Mandarin. In Japan, they use katakana or kanji. And in Korea, use Hangul, yeah, or Korean language. That's a very different alphabet, yeah. So they are really struggle to use English, yeah, when they have to switch from their own language to English. So there are so many modification they use uh, when they are struggling to speak English. But it's okay, yeah, it's okay, and it can be something like a variation in English. Yeah, this is something a phenomenon, yeah, in society in East Asian Englishes. Yeah. So uh, that's a very important thing here is we know the history. We know why these East Asian countries trying to be a global, but they also know how to do and how to use English, and they still remain become until now, yeah, become countries that really famous, yeah, with their culture, yeah. They can still keep up with their culture, and also some of their actor and actress is already influence, yeah, fluence in speaking English, because like as Korean, some of their actor actress and also scientists in Korea, most of them already study abroad, yeah. It can be in a UK or in the US. They try to um, make their English is better, and they hope that when they come back to their country, they can advance their countries, yeah, and also their culture to the global context. That's it, yeah. Uh, and for the suggestion activity, you may read by yourself, yeah. I will give you this slide to the Google Classroom. And for the assignment, as usual, if when you watch my video right now, then you understand the material, please make a summary, yeah, for all that I already explained to you. And also, you have to underline the important key points from Korea, Japan, and also China, yeah, as three kinds of East Asian Anglicist countries, yeah. And after that, you have to explain by it by yourself by recording to the video around 3 minutes or more, and you have to share your link video in Google Classroom assignment as the proof of your assignment. That's all, everyone, that I can share to you. See you again in my next video, maybe in the eighth meeting, yeah, because in the seventh meeting you have to come to the university and meet me offline. Okay, that's all, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. See you again in my next video. Bye.